Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Carter will not give up hope in Forrester. Hope Logan is about to have a rough awakening. She supported Carter Walton for the past few months while he deceitfully took Forrester creations from the Forrester family. Although he came up with the idea, Hope has been crucial in giving Carter the confidence and boost he needs to stick with it, at least temporarily. Carter was consumed by his conscience. Carter was an honorary Forrester prior to this coup. Perhaps most significantly, there was no indication that he was unhappy. They treated him like a part of the family and trusted him with everything. When Carter offered them the chance to make Forrester a worldwide brand that sold everything from candles to household items, Ridge and Eric Forrester declined. Normally, Carter would have been fine with them stifling his ideas, but these aren't normal times. They wanted to stick with couture and a few other specific design lines. Hope exploited Carter's sense of being invisible and excluded, combined it with her long-standing feelings at the workplace, and then everything went haywire. For a brief moment, they were both thrilled and delighted as the takeover occurred. Carter's remorse began to consume him as Hope went out and grew more power-hungry. Hope didn't even recognize Carter's struggle until Daphne Rose did. Steffi Forrester recruited Daphne Rose to Forrester Creations in order to develop a trademark fragrance and destroy Carter and Hope's romance. The coup would undoubtedly fail if she could sabotage their alliance and put them at odds. Daphne didn't have to put in much effort since she discovered in Carter a man who was already dealing with crippling guilt over his betrayal. Daphne merely urged Carter to act morally because she saw him for who he truly was. Along the process, she also developed some serious feelings, and it appears that Carter did too. In the meantime, Hope ignored him, didn't want to hear it, or silenced him when he tried to express how he was feeling. Their relationship has suffered as a result of her thirst for power and control taking precedence over acting honorably. Hope has been fired, and Carter will not accompany her on her departure. Hope understood that her line and employment were theoretically safe, but she was appalled to learn that Carter tore up the LLC paperwork and returned the business to Ridge and Eric. Although he didn't have it in writing, Carter forced them to swear that hope for the future would go on. During a meeting with Steffi, Ridge, and Eric, Carter found out that Brooke Logan's and his jobs at the firm are secure. Since hope for the future was about integrity, sustainability, and true goodness, all of which Hope no longer stands for, both Hope and her line are finished. Hope shouted for Carter to accompany her as she began to walk out of the office because they still have a relationship, but she wasn't reading the room as normal. Carter's demeanor is completely at odds with her degree of animosity and rage. He is not going to accompany Hope in departing in a fit of wrath since he has been humbled and feels ashamed of how far things have come. The hush that comes before a storm shrouded the Forrester estate. In his father Eric's study, Ridge Forrester stood by himself, the mahogany beams above him bearing down on him like the weight of 30 years of hesitation. Each of the two envelopes on the desk, slate gray for Taylor Hayes, and cream for Brooke Logan, held a letter that would end a lifetime of confusion, guilt, and love. As he drew the margins, his hands shook, and he could hear the ghosts of their voices reverberating around the room, Taylor's crying pleas in Aspen, Brooke's impassioned assertions in Paris, the clamor of broken promises and burned bridges. But there was no way out tonight. He had been squeezed by the board's demand that he choose a CEO, a wife, and a legacy, or lose all three. The mantel clock was approaching midnight. Downstairs, blissfully unaware of the explosion that would soon rock her world, Steffi's laughter drifted up from the terrace. The decision, Taylor's Sanctuary versus Brooke's Inferno. Ridge was the first to open Brooke's envelope. After their most recent violent altercation, she wrote in the letter, "You taught me passion, but passion burns." Her love had always been thrilling, all-consuming, and devastating, like a wildfire. With her Logan determination as a sword and shield, she had supported him through betrayals and bankruptcies. However, that devotion had turned into desperation. Her eyes were filled with a hope that he was unable to return when she surprised him at work last week with a slideshow of their Paris vow renewal. She said, "We're destiny, Ridge," as the room filled with the aroma of her perfume, "Forever by Forrester, which he had created especially for her. However, fate had cost them too much: Beth's nightmares, Hope's broken trust, and the way Brooke's hold on him had turned into a stranglehold. "You're my peace," Taylor wrote in a succinct, scathing message, "but you're not enough for a Forrester, are you?" After discovering Brooke's lipstick on his collar once more, she had placed it on his pillow. Taylor, the lady who had helped him recover from his motorbike accident and who had patiently endured his betrayals, was worthy of more than his vacuous assurances. However, he now understood that tranquility was a myth. Taylor's composure was a holdover from a life he had never really desired, while the Forresters thrived on upheaval. The door to the study squeaked open. Age and illness had weakened Eric's once imposing body as he stood in the entryway. "Son, it's time." Ridge didn't raise his head. "What if I make a bad decision?" The floor was tapped by Eric's cane. "You have already done so." The repercussions: a burning dynasty. The betrayal in the boardroom. In the subdued boardroom, Brooke was the first to arrive, her scarlet gown a blade of defiance. With her chin up and her eyes challenging anyone to oppose her, she asserted her claim to the seat at the head of the table. "Emergency meeting," Ridge wrote in a mysterious text. "Be there." Had driven her into a tailspin. However, nothing had prepared her for the stomach punch of Steffi and Thomas flanking Taylor like sentinels. "What are you talking about, Ridge?" The tension was relieved by Brooke's voice. He stood with his back to the window. "The board cast its vote. One CEO is what they desire. No concessions." Steffi had a deadly smirk. "At last, Dad is taking a side." "Our side." The table was gouged by Brooke's nails. "You're spending time with her?" "It's not yours," Taylor muttered. "It wasn't." Ridge turned, a mask covering his face. "I'm leaving my position as CEO. Steffi assumes control." The room exploded. Brooke sprang up quickly. "You're giving a kid Forrester? After all that I've done?" "And I'm going to file for divorce," Ridge added more loudly. "Quiet." Brooke's knees gave out. Hope, who was hovering in the doorway, hurried to help her stand. "You can't." Ridge addressed Brooke's broken eyes and said, "It's done. I'm going with Taylor." There was something wrong with Brooke's laugh. "You are, of course. Since Taylor is simple. Because when you fail her, she doesn't make you feel like a little person." Steel in her voice, Taylor stood. "Brooke, this isn't about you. It's about Ridge maturing at last. Growing up?" Brooke broke down in tears. "Taylor, you are his nurse. Not his spouse. And don't come to me in tears when he's bored." Steffi sprang forward, but Thomas stopped her. "You're not allowed to speak to her in that manner." "Enough." The room fell silent as Eric roared. "This family is disintegrating itself." "No," Ridge said. "I'm destroying it. In order to preserve it." The crucible, Carter's ultimatum. The hidden secret. The burden of his own treachery weighed heavily on Carter Walton as he sat in his office. He had been Brooke's hesitant confidant for months, ever since she had sobbed about Ridge's coldness and collapsed in his arms following a late-night drink. She had admitted, "I don't know how to exist without him," her vulnerability a weakness. Carter had become her unlikely ally, still in shock about his own demise, Sheila Carter's manipulation, his brief affair with Quinn. But as their relationship deteriorated, Brooke begged him to find out more about Steffi's shin line, and when he hesitated, she threatened him in hushed tones. A dossier containing his secret meetings with Brooke, pictures of the two of them huddled in her car, and bank transfers to a shell firm were all part of Ridge's ultimatum, which was now in front of him. The note said, "I will take this to the board unless you resign by dawn." Brooke buzzed on Carter's phone. "Have you received the Steffi files?" Torn, he gazed at the television. Self-preservation or loyalty to Brooke, the lady who had advocated for his reinstatement. Then he recalled the other secret that was rotting on his desk, evidence that Taylor had bought off a model to say Ridge had abused her when they were apart. A secret that might break the family up and set Brooke free. The duel. With bloodshot eyes, Ridge barged into Carter's office around midnight. "You have 1 minute to give an explanation." Carter retracted the dossier. "Brooke is in dire need. Here, she is not the antagonist." Ridge growled, "She's taking advantage of you. Like she takes advantage of everyone. You're using Taylor, too." Carter retorted. "You don't realize that the moment she falters, you'll scurry back to Brooke? Ridge, you're addicted. Brooke is also your drug." Ridge pounded the desk with his fist. "You're finished. Tonight." The truth was boiling over as Carter stood. "Do you desire a scandal? What if Taylor paid that model to tell a falsehood about you? What about the accidental disclosure of Hope's designs by Steffi?" He threw the files away. "I burn everyone if you burn me." There was a heavy, deadly silence. Ridge's voice became hardly audible. "What are you looking for? Brooke should be reinstated as co-CEO. Or I go public." Hope's embarrassment grows as Carter's well-considered choice elevates Steffi's victory. In the sleek offices of Forrester Creations, Hope Logan sat slouched in her office chair, her normally flawless blonde waves tangled from hours of nervous fingers running over them, as the sun hung low over Los Angeles, creating lengthy shadows. At her feet, the once bright hope for the future mood board was in ruins, with sketches crumpled and fabric samples ripped, a tangible representation of the catastrophe that was happening all around her. The aftermath from a stunning exposé that accused her of taking shortcuts with unethical overseas factories led to the removal of her iconic sustainable fashion line from stores across the country only that morning. "Hope's hypocrisy, eco-warrior exploits child labor," read the scathing headlines. Her phone was constantly buzzing with angry investors, disgruntled fans, and her mother Brooke's anxious voicemails, but Hope was immobile and unable to breathe due to the weight of her collapsing business, which was pressing down on her like a tombstone. As Steffi Forrester finished organizing her Steffi Streetwear pop-up, which was planned to take advantage of Hope's collapse, her sardonic and triumphant laughter reverberated through the open door of her corner office across the hall. As her scarlet fingernails drummed triumphantly on her desk, Steffi murmured into the headset, "Order more champagne. This is a funeral, not just a launch." An internal betrayal. The humiliation had started 3 days earlier when Fashion Insider received video from an anonymous whistleblower that showed rows of young workers stitching Hope's famous flowery dresses in a dark Bangladeshi factory. Hope had been caught off guard since she believed she had personally screened each provider. However, the factory manager's on-camera admission that Hope's staff had pushed him to cut costs while ignoring infractions was unquestionable proof. During a midnight crisis call, Hope broke her voice and muttered to Brooke, "I trusted Carter to handle the contracts. He vowed that everything was moral." Hope had thought that Carter Walton, the recently elevated chief legal officer of Forrester Creations, had been her loyal ally ever since he returned from a sabbatical. Carter had quietly and resolutely restored his reputation after becoming embroiled in Sheila Carter's web of manipulation. He was now Hope's confidant and the strongest opponent of Steffi in boardroom conflicts. However, Carter became aloof as the controversy broke, his office was oddly deserted, and his texts went unanswered. Hope's estranged husband, Liam Spencer, furrowed his brow and warned over coffee at Il Giardino, "He's avoiding you. I have witnessed this before. He's hiding his behind." Until she confronted Carter in the parking garage, his fitted suit rumpled and his eyes evasive, Hope didn't believe it. With tears clouding her vision, she begged, "Tell me you didn't know. Assure me that this was not your fault." Carter's silence was sufficient response. "Why?" Hope choked out. Without saying another word, he slipped into his Mercedes and mumbled, "It's not that simple. Steffi's bet, the twist of the knife." Meanwhile, Steffi was planning her brilliant move. She had been fuming for months as Hope's holier-than-thou attitude eclipsed her edgy Steffi collection, with the board applauding Hope's integrity and rejecting Steffi's aggressive methods. However, Steffi Forrester won, not against a Logan, not against anybody. Who was the whistleblower? Her invention. The manager of the factory? Paid well to tell lies. What about Carter? threatening his hard-won salvation. He is a pawn in her game, blackmailed with pictures of his midnight sessions with Sheila Carter. Weeks before, Steffi had slipped a manila envelope across Carter's desk and said, "You have two options. I'll bury you unless you help me bury Hope." As he looked at the incriminating images, Sheila giving him a burner phone, their shadows entangled in a back alley, Carter's jaw tensed. Years have passed since this. I was compromised. With a poisonous sneer, Steffi added, and Hope's so forgiving. When she discovers that you are still Sheila's puppet, though, will she feel the same way? Now that Hope's reputation was in ruins, Steffi celebrated her triumph. At a secret supper with Carter, she toasted to Hope's downfall, her crystal glass clinking against his. And according to your judgment. Carter drank silently, his mouth harsh from the bourbon. Hope's crucible, the press conference. Hope's last humiliation was shown live on national TV. She had been urged by Brooke to call off the news conference, "Let me do this." But Hope refused to back down from a challenge, and her mother's renowned Logan fortitude propelled her to the stage. As she walked up to the microphone, flashes burst, her ivory blazer standing out against the swarm of reporters in black suits. Despite the shaking of her hands, Hope's voice remained firm as she said, "I accept full responsibility. Transparency was the foundation of the Hope for the Future line, and I didn't live up to that. We're cutting off all international partnerships with immediate effect and starting an independent audit." "What about the child labor rumors you were aware of?" one reporter yelled. "What about Carter Walton's role?" another sneered. Hope's prepared speech fell apart as she froze. "Carter, but he handled the contracts." The doors sprang open, and Carter strode in with guards on either side, his face unreadable. Could he be there to help her? Hope gasped. "To admit?" "Ms. Logan's claims are false," Carter said, averting her eyes. "She received a thorough briefing on the conditions in the workplace. Emails from my team attest to her approval." The room exploded. Hope's legs gave way when fake emails appeared on displays, her words distorted and her signature falsified. "Why, Carter?" she muttered, but he had already vanished, engulfed by the throng. Steffi's victory, the crowning of a queen. From her apartment across town, Steffi watched the horror unfold, her laughter echoing as Hope's face collapsed on screen. She purred, sending Carter a single word via text, "Promoted." Steffi dismantled Hope's section as her first action after being appointed sole CEO of Forrester Creations the following morning. With her diamond CEO badge gleaming, she joked to a shell-shocked Hope in the elevator, "Don't take it personally. It is merely business." It was personal for Hope, though. The betrayal of Carter, the person she had confided in, trusted, and even stood up to Steffi's jabs, went beyond the news headlines. At his new corner office, where Steffi's praise was already plastered on the walls, she confronted him. "Did any of it happen?" Hope's voice was rough as she demanded. Carter's eyes flickered with shame as his disguise came off. "There was nothing I could do. Steffi is my owner." Hope slammed a picture of himself and Sheila onto his desk and spat, "We all have choices. You just gave the devil your soul." The reimagining of Hope, a grounded romance and a sustainable future. Hope Logan is ready for a change that is consistent with her basic values, compassion, ethics, and resilience, after her reputation and career at Forrester Creations collapsed. Her love for sustainable fashion should be transformed into a daring, independent business in her next chapter, free from the toxic dynamics of the Forrester-Logan feud. Her rebirth would flourish if she moved to a city like Copenhagen, which is a global center for ethical design innovation. She might start Haven Collective here, a non-profit that supports up-and-coming designers who are dedicated to environmentally friendly practices. This platform would directly address the labor abuses that ruined her past by mentoring talent and collaborating with craftspeople throughout the world to ensure fair compensation and transparency. Hope would be positioned as a thought leader rather than a pawn in business games thanks to her vision, which would draw donations and partnerships with groups like Fashion Revolution. Her advocacy efforts would include speaking at international summits and advocating for changes to the business as a whole. By changing her identity from corporate designer to activist entrepreneur, she would demonstrate that she was more complex than the hope for the future saintly figure. Hope would represent a movement while wearing simple, ethically produced linen and repurposed textiles. Her calm resolve would resonate with a generation that demands accountability. With Elias Winter, a Danish social entrepreneur and the creator of a zero-waste textile firm, romance would develop naturally in this new environment. A disagreement over panelist seating at a climate conference that turns into a late-night argument about circular fashion economics would be a refreshingly grounded meet-cute. With his sardonic humor and grizzled knuckles from years of working in factories, Elias pushes Hope to strike a balance between her emotions and practicality. There is no baggage, neither Thomas's fixation nor Liam's hesitancy, unlike her previous relationships. Rather, they become closer through common goals, such as delivering solar-powered sewing kits to rural areas or coming up with viral ideas to expose greenwashing companies. Their relationship would develop gradually, based on respect for one another yet tense professionally as they managed to combine their NGOs. An important turning point would occur on a trip to Bangladesh during the monsoon season, where they saw a factory that they had all helped to revitalize and was now flourishing with solar panels and daycare centers. Elias would give her a ring made of recycled titanium amid the rain, a sign of friendship rather than ownership. He would remark, "You don't need saving. But we are needed by the world." Steffi's disparaging comments regarding Hope's quaint little NGO would seem inane back home as Haven Collective secures a Vogue article. Although their tense calls would allude to unhealed wounds, even Brooke's initial skepticism would eventually turn to pride. Hope's path demonstrates that resilience is about creating forests in the wake of storms rather than deleting her past. With Elias by her side, she is writing her own legacy, one stitch at a time, rather than becoming a pawn in someone else's tale. Dad Deacon saves the day, Brooke's cruel insult to Hope? Teasers and spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful. What would happen when Hope Logan receives a severe reprimand from her mother was hinted to by Sean Cannon. On X, formerly Twitter, he responded to a social media post that seemed to be a sneak peek video featuring Daddy to the rescue. Hope is brutally crushed by Brooke, it's not just tough love. Sean Cannon hinted at what's coming when a fan expressed worries on X, the platform that was once known as Twitter, regarding Hope being viciously abused by Brooke Logan. Deacon has been mostly absent from Hope's life lately, but that is going to change once he realizes how much agony she is going through. In a previous post titled "Dad to the Rescue," Cannon alluded to the emergence of Deacon's protective character and his determination to save Hope. In addition, he will be her confidant, supporting and advising her during her difficulties. It's easy to imagine Deacon approaching Steffi Forrester, Jacqueline McInnes Wood, about her choice to fire Hope from her position and shut down her fashion line. Hope feels Carter Walton has betrayed her. A variety of viewpoints have been sparked on social media by Steffi's decision to reject Carter Walton's, Lawrence St. Victor, proposal and fire Hope. While some BNB fans believe Steffi is being unjust, others believe Hope is suffering the repercussions of her conduct. Regardless of your point of view, it is clear that Hope is going through a difficult time. This might be a serious obstacle to their relationship because Carter is hesitant to leave Forrester Creations. Hope can feel quite alone and betrayed even by her mother, if she decides to break up with Carter. Brooke, get out of here. While Sean implies that he will have to intervene to preserve his daughter, Deacon might criticize Brooke for not providing their daughter with the assistance she requires. Brooke believes Hope should be held accountable for her recent behavior, but Deacon may feel that her approach is too severe. He might even wonder whether Brooke's severe methods are an attempt to get Ridge Forrester back. In the upcoming episodes, tensions with Brooke may increase if Deacon starts to express his worries. However, he will put Hope first and strongly order Brooke to leave.